Hey D&Ders, welcome back to Drop the Lowest. My name's Martin. I'm glad to have you here. What are we talking about today? What's on the board? You know what? I was just sitting here thinking about an idea for a video, and I was like, what are the differences between classic modules versus newer modules? All right, so first off, what do I mean by classic? Well, if second edition, third, fourth, original D&D were movies, they would be played on AMC. Sorry. But I mean, it is what it is. So classic old modules versus new modules. Okay? That's the topic. What's the difference? Should you continue to use old modules? Are they worth it? Should you buy any newer modules? Is that the only way to go because it's 5e? Are you going to spend time converting over? Well, I don't know. We'll see. Let's take, for instance, two modules right off the bat. One of them is Matt Colville's favorite, which is Against the Cult of the Reptile God. It's a module that I'm running right now. In fact, I did a little video about murder hobos that I'm running them right now on that module, and I ported that over to Fantasy Grounds by hand, which that was an experience all of in itself. But yeah, so old modules, new modules. What's the difference? What is the difference versus the two, or between them? Well, one, I would say older modules are a bit more sandbox. Newer modules are a bit more linear. Wait. How can this be? Well, newer modules, they're huge. They're huge. You take Tomb of Annihilation. The jungle itself is a monster. I will try to prevent any spoilers in this, but you know, just so you're aware. So, Tomb of Annihilation. Big cities, huge. It would take you forever to talk to everybody there. Older modules, Against the Cult of the Reptile God. About a 30-something page module. Much smaller town. But guess what? Every NPC has the stats, has the items, has their money, everything. Why is that? Well, back, in classic D&D, your rogues and your fighters and, you're talking about wargaming up to role-playing. So the expectation was if you had a thief, they were going to steal things. And the other expectation was that you have a bunch of fighters come into town, they're probably going to get into fights. So there were stats for everybody there. Newer modules, there are not stats for absolutely everybody. In fact, you really need to utilize some random tables for some of these things, and that's kind of the big premise of those randomized tables in the newer modules, and that makes sense. That makes sense because you cannot prepare for absolutely everything in those modules. You just can't. It's great to read them. And it's great to be familiar with your modules, but you cannot plan for every situation. In these older modules, it's great because in Fantasy Grounds, I was able to port via the map every encounter. And so, I had the loot parcels, everything was already there that I put in. So as we're playing, I am just going from section to section to section via the map, and that's how we're doing. But the other reason I consider older modules, the classic modules, more of a sandbox type is because you can go straight to the end and go to the last boss if you really want to. You really can. In fact, you don't have to utilize any NPC technically. Whereas, for instance, again, Against the Cult of the Reptile God, if you're just going through the jungle, there's a slew of different guides you have to pick from. Why do you need a guide? Well, you're probably going to die if you don't have the guide. The guide is specifically in this module, to help you along. Now, granted, they'll have some personality traits, different goals, motives, things of that nature. But the premise is still there, that they are there to help you through the jungle. Whereas in more of your sandbox modules, like against the Cold Reptile God, there's nobody guiding you through this town. There are guides, there are people you can utilize, but it's really designed for you to just go through and figure everything out. And that's part of one of the big differences between them. So the other reason is obviously the scale. As we said, against Cold Reptile God is in a small town, whereas the Tomb of Annihilation, huge cities, metropolis, big port. So much different. Another big difference, monsters. Monsters are a huge difference between classic and more modern D&D, as well as probably other RPGs. For instance, I had an encounter out of my deck of encounters that I still utilize today and love to use them because they're just fun. It is fun to dip into some of that classic stuff and just, have at it. Well, I had a situation where my group was going to rescue a baby goblin from 2 trolls that were about to eat it. Had I not fudged a few rolls, them trolls would have wiped that whole party. Because in classic D&D, just light those suckers on fire, they will go down pretty easily. Modern D&D, or as we call 5e at this point, not so much. Trolls are rough. If we did not have a paladin in the party that could smite and light these dudes on fire, it was about to be a bad day, and I fudged some rolls. I had to. I decided to toss in that random encounter for fun and almost wiped the party. So, I mean, really, are the old modules worth anything? Are they? Should you just stick to new modules? I am of a mind that the best DMs are creative DMs. If somebody wants to turn left instead of right, a creative DM is like, great, guess what's over here? You are in a whole nother part of the city. It smells like feces, it's rank, it's rough, but you see this very interesting figure, and one you maybe even possibly recognize. Just take a corner on down the alley. Why not? Be creative. Who cares? It's a game. It's about having fun and enjoying it. So, for me, I love the old modules. Pick them up wherever you can. Pick them up. There is value in all of it. Value in every older module there is. Convert them over. It's not hard. It's not difficult. You can look up almost all the monsters in those modules for 5e. And if you can't, make it up. It's fine. Be creative. Enjoy this. I mean, these are the big differences that I can see. However, as I said, I am running a group through against the Cold Reptile God, which I have already converted to 5e, and I've had to scale it up some. There are certain fights that they are just mowing through people. Just mowing right through them. Then there's other fights that I have changed and altered that, a couple people went down. Great fights. Absolutely. And those were much more memorable. So, take it for what it's worth, but be creative. Go for some of those older modules. There's great information in there. But they are definitely way overdone. Smaller settings. Larger modules, or more modern, much bigger in scale in terms of geographic, story, everything. Also much more linear. It is going to be harder for you to allow them to sandbox in those types of areas. You're going to have a harder time keeping up than you do with some of the smaller modules where everybody's got a name and how many daughters the farmer has, and how many sons the blacksmith has. If the blacksmith has a temper. It's great in these older modules. There's a ton of material that you can buzz back through that you don't necessarily have in these. So, now again, not every module, every small module is going to be fit for your party. Against Cult of Reptile God, levels 1 through 5 at the most. Maybe 1 through 3, really. Maybe you want to try Night Below. That's a big one. That's a fun one. So, get the older modules. If you see them on eBay, if you see them in bookstores, wherever you can find them, grab them, pick them up, keep them, convert them over, have fun. Well, that's it. Thanks for coming and watching. My name's Martin. This is Drop the Lowest. We'll see you soon.